Well, good morning all and happy Monday. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I'll let you know my weekend here was a little weird. It was raining in San Diego. And for those of you that don't know a lot about the city, it rains like 7 days a year. And apparently it's raining again today. So 2 days in a row of rain, kind of odd, but it's keeping us on our toes and keeping us busy and off the beach and getting us to get things done, which is always great. So I hope you're ready to start the week strong. I know sales have been up since last week, and after a lot of you reached out with some really great questions, I hope you're able to start working on those insurance packages like we were talking about. So kind of the theme of this week is really creating a habit and thinking in sales that, creating habits is very important. So I'm going to start with a nice Jim Rohn quote here. He was an entrepreneur, author, and motivational speaker. Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. So just like last week, when we stated that motivation is something that you need every day, you kind of need that habit of finding the motivation, creating those positive habits and things that you go through to create consistency in sales, which we all know consistency in paychecks is something that we're all interested in. So that's great. So Motivational Monday. So like last week when we talked about, kind of the structure, this is what we're going to do again. So we're going to start with kind of a tip of the week and kind of a refresh from some of the things we talked about last week. We're going to take a look at some AHCP trends and then talk about a sales technique that I know was emailed out about you, about the 4 effective steps to every sales process, and kind of talk about how that works in the insurance sales world. So to start with the tip of last week's kind of a review, so we talked about the NHIC signatures needed completion because we're selling a ton of those products, but something about lead credits. So just to remind you, we talked about lead credits. They were in your e-agent center, but I wanted to let you know, one thing we didn't touch about last week is that they actually expire after 90 days. Use them or lose them. We had so much business during this last open enrollment, and you guys did so much sales that you're going to have a ton of lead credits out there. Make sure to use them. Keep in mind, they're only there for 90 days. You have a huge balance. Use them. And if you need advice on how to use them, please reach out. Don't hesitate. Let me know. That's what I'm here for, to help you with. So kind of this week's tips. One of the things that people have reached out about is kind of organizing all of your writing websites. So you have a lot of passwords, you have a lot of back offices for all of your different carriers that you're using. One thing that really seems to happen to us in the insurance world is that we have so many great products at our fingertips that we kind of lose and misplace things. It happens. I completely understand. I really do. But I can tell you it's kind of a horrible experience for your client when you're trying to find your login, when you're trying to sell the customer and you get locked out, So you want to be as efficient as possible at all times. So organization is really key. So one thing that I do is actually create a contact in my email for every writing website and every carrier. And in there I have the writing website, my username, my password, but then I also put in the back office and then my username and password for the back office and any notes I need to leave for myself. The nice thing about this is that if I'm out and about, I actually have that contact information with me at that time because it's a contact in your email. And it's extremely editable. I know some people really like the Excel, but this one seems to work great for me. I've been doing it for probably about 5 or 6 years now. That way I can just, click through, everything's pre-organized, and I have all the information I need at my fingertips. Another thing as well, we talked about creating that total package. As far as it goes, StarMount is available to sell in your E123 or your carryingbenefits.com there. So it is built in. StarMount is a great dental carrier. We did a training on it. The training is in the pre-recorded training library at AHCP Sales. So go watch the video. It'll give you kind of a lot of insight on what's going on. It's really, really great product. The video is extremely informative, actually. And if you have any questions on contracting or how to go through that, there's the number to agent services, or you can email them at contracting@ahcpsales.com. Don't hesitate to reach out for them. Agent services is there to help you with any contracting and any commission questions that you may have. So kind of past that tip, let's get into some trends. So last week, we kind of looked at the increase and decrease in sales by category, and we talked a lot about creating a total package. Now, we know we're going to see a huge uptick in short-term sales, which we all know isn't much of a surprise, but as far as it goes, we were really just selling a ton of the NHIC products. The short-term guaranteed issue, we are actually up about double compared to last week. NHIC really seems to be the leader for the short-term sales here. And I'm actually really pretty big fan of that short-term product too. I was in Milwaukee last week with the president of NHIC, and he was telling me that NHIC really has some great things up their sleeves for the short-term plans. So make sure to keep on your toes. We're going to see some things rolling out hopefully pretty soon, and I think they're going to be really great benefits. So I'm glad to say we saw a really nice increase in ancillary sales in almost every category. I thought this week we'd kind of take a look at the trends in each section of what we are actually selling policy-wise. It's always kind of nice to know, I think, whatever other people in the field are selling. So we saw a huge increase in accident plans. The big ones that seem to be sold is the Healthy America, the Gap Plus plan. It's really about like 60% of the accident policies that are sold, and that is followed closely by VBA. And I understand the selling of the Gap Plus and how that comes with the AME and the AD&D and the critical illness and the term life. Really great combo pack. It's kind of like the Trio Med almost. So we saw a ton of those out there. As far as it goes for the critical illness, what people seem to be selling, and I mean by far the leader, is CBL. It was way over 60% of the sales that are out there. And I know that some people are selling those time insurance or the old insurance CI product. I saw some of those sales come through, but honestly, CBL was the front runner. And one thing I noticed too is those agents that were doing the CBL were really trying to create the total package and using other ancillary products as well. So that was really great. Now the front runner in all of the ancillary sales is the Trio Med. If you took everything we sold in accident and everything we sold in critical illness and added it together and doubled it, you still wouldn't hit what we sold in Trio Med. That is just a ton of sales that we're pouring through. So agents that have been selling it, one thing to keep in mind is we'll talk a little bit about dental and trying to attach that, and I'll explain my reasoning why. But if you are not selling the Trio Med and you're selling the short term, take a look at why. I mean, the Trio Med is only about $10 more for an individual. So really inexpensive. People are selling just a ton of it though. And kind of to my surprise, the dental sales were actually down. I know we mentioned, the awesome Star Mount plans. Keep in mind as we talk about the total package for your clients, most clients have actually lost their dental insurance, and it's literally the easiest product to attach. I know there's not a huge commission on it. I'm well aware they're cheap and inexpensive. But when your client loses insurance, they lose dental insurance. The thing about dental is this is something tangible that they can use right away. Health insurance, short-term, major medical, it's kind of the big what if. Hopefully something they don't have to use. But the reason why I kind of harp about adding dental is it's something that they can go in and they can start using usually right away. So they see value in the insurance. It kind of helps them keep the total package you're creating more long-term. So you are providing value to your customer right away. I mean, we really hope they're not going to have to use that short-term medical plan, but with this, they can see kind of the benefit. So something to keep in mind, something to look at adding. If you are not adding dental right now, I mean, those plans are really cheap. They're under $20 a month. And if it's going to help your clients keep the package that you're creating more long-term, I think I'd be willing to spend the extra, 4 or 5 minutes it takes to sell that dental plan. And the nice thing too is everybody knows what dental is for the most part. That's something that they can understand. So it's a pretty good idea to add it. Now, kind of what some people have emailed in questions about, we're going to talk about just the effective sales process. This is more of a whole picture than just one specific technique. And I really wanted to give you my perspective on what an effective sales process is. So I know we can all agree that every sales process has an introduction piece, the whole who you are, kind of what you're doing. From there, we find out something about what the customer wants. I call that fact finding. Some people call that investigation. We present what we want to sell, and then we close the customer. This is really the big picture on every sales process, right? Just 4 simple steps. It's the same process as someone is selling cars, if they're selling houses, boats, insurance, anything. If you just wipe away everything that happens, every sales process will have these 4 steps. So let's kind of jump into the steps and how they relate to insurance. So one of the big things is, let's start with the introduction. So what's in an introduction? Well, the introduction is really giving the client the big what's in it for them. Why should they listen? Why should they be talking to you? A lot of agents start out by saying who they are and not really what they can do. Introduction is very powerful because what happens is the average person only gives you 7 seconds before they decide if they like you or not. First impressions are so powerful in sales. So things you have to do in an introduction is really get the customer to like you, get them to trust you, get them to believe in you, and really get them to feel that you are professional. I mean, those things are all extremely, extremely important. So, kind of as far as it goes with the introduction, what you want to do is set up what is going to be happening as far as for success and let them know kind of what you're going to do and what the sales process is. So I'm going to ask you a few questions kind of about your current insurance situation and your expectations of a plan. From there, what we can do is we're going to go about and customize a total insurance package for you. And kind of as long as you like what you're going to hear, we're going to go ahead and get you applied for that today. So you're setting them up for what to expect during your whole conversation. You're letting them know that, yes, you're going to be digging into that fact finding. Yes, I'm going to be presenting you. And you know what's going to happen in the end is I'm going to close you. I'm going to let you know right in the beginning that, yes, we're going to be closed together. So these are things to think about during your introduction. Kind of pass a whole, hey, is John there? It's once you get John on the phone, can you set him up right away for what is going to happen? Introduction is super important. And it just lets you kind of set the tone for the call. I'll tell you a lot of times what happens in the sales process is people don't spend a lot of time in the introduction. They're just really excited that they're talking to somebody and they waste a lot of time. Spend the time in the introduction setting the client up. It will make them feel better too long term. If you tell somebody in the beginning, guess what, I'm going to ask for your business and we're going to walk into this business together, they know what's going to happen. So if they're going to get cold feet, they'll get cold feet on the front end. Hopefully run away more on the front end so you're not wasting as much time with the client. Just a personal thought there. So past the introduction, which we all know, every sales process has that introduction and we're going to set the client up for success there. My next area that I will spend more time on is really fact finding. Most good salespeople will spend a large majority of their sales process on fact finding. And I mean a large majority. Honestly, 60 to 70% of their conversation will be fact finding. Really, introduction is about 10%. Your presentation, if you do a good job in fact finding, will only honestly be about 10% because the client won't have a ton of questions. And your close should be about 10%. Really, it's all going to be focused on your fact finding. Learning the client's usage. This is so important to know the real kind of concept of why they're calling and what they're going to do. So as we go about this section, it's really going to be kind of about 6 steps. First is what they had in the past. The reason why, they probably told you in their introduction, hey, I'm calling for insurance, I just lost it. That's fine. I want to start a conversation with fact finding. I want to make my client comfortable. It's so important to know the real concepts about what they understand. So, I use this kind of what they had in the past as to gauge your understanding and experiences of what they use it for. I can figure out if they know what a deductible is here, and I honestly usually just keep this, as smooth as possible. I don't want to get the client's guard up yet. So something along the lines of, so earlier you said you were calling me for a short-term plan. So are you currently insured, or when was the last time you had it? So kind of let me know. And then I kind of move into, more of, okay, so that is what you had in the past. Can you tell me a little things about that plan? Just kind of get them to open up, let them tell you about it. Usually the first few things they say are the things they actually care about when it comes to insurance. So keep that in mind. We don't want to waste too much time here. And then kind of get into the why. If you can't figure out a good reason why they're calling, so yeah, they lost insurance, but why do they need it? Yeah, a lot of people lose insurance, but what is the reason they actually need the insurance? Why did they pick up the phone and call you today? What made them do this? So I'll tell you, I'll spend a lot of time on the reason why. I usually don't take their first why as the actual reason why they're calling, because most people are going to lie to you right away. Natural human instinct is throw up a guard. Hey, guess what? I'm going to lie to you. No, really, what's the reason why? Maybe, they've had a family member who has passed away due to something big, and so they're really concerned about not having insurance, not being insured. So spend time on that. I'll say, what's the reason why you picked up the phone and gave me a call? Not having insurance is something that's scary to you. Why is that scary? What inspired you to just start shopping today? You've been uninsured for 60 days. Why start now? So the time you spend here is really going to help you kind of do the close. After that, I like to talk about usage. So I like to bring out negative in what they've known in the past. So I'll ask them, out of all the insurance plans that you've been shopping for, what about them have you not liked, just so I don't make those same mistakes? And they'll spew some negative, and then I can write down, what about them did they not like? Hopefully it's things that, I can fix. And then I tell them, what I'm going to do now is I'll ask you some questions about how you're actually going to use this plan. Just kind of go through and, make sure we're going to customize a plan that's going to suit your abilities to the best. So I'll ask them if there's any significant medical things that are coming up. So do you have any significant surgeries or anything that you're really worried about coming up? How about your prescriptions? How often do people go to the doctor on average? This is especially important if they have like sick little Timmy. And we know in the past people had those major medical plans that were underwritten. So sometimes you have to let them know, hey, guess what? I do have guaranteed issue plans out there, especially with this guaranteed issue short term, kind of help put them at ease. I also like to ask them, this is a pretty big one that helps me really add my ancillary products, is how many times in the past 10 years have you had over $1,000 in medical bills? The reason why I ask that is if they've never gone over $1,000 in medical bills and they want a low deductible, that may not be the best choice for the client. They may be throwing away a lot of money and maybe something I might be able to help them with. If it's one of those people who tells me, hey, guess what? I've hit my deductible 6 times. I'm an extreme klutz. I've fallen off a ladder trying to hang Christmas lights. I busted my shins playing hockey, whatever it is. That's a good idea that, hey, guess what? You're going to need a low deductible, and it's going to give me something to tie back to and explain with. But if they tell me no, that I've never ever hit my deductible, might be a good idea to sell maybe a little higher deductible, maybe around $5,000, $6,000, and really attach maybe an accident and a critical illness, because again, if 80% of the reason that they're going to be using their insurance is going to be an accident, hey, maybe you can save them a little bit of money and attach 2 other plans onto it. So kind of helps you as far as commission-wise goes, knowing that with what's going on in the major medical field, ancillary products are really going to be where we're making our money. This is a good place to spend some time on. After that, I really like to make sure we get a realistic budget. Talking about money on the front end instead of the back end of, hey, I have 400 plans to pick from, let's try to figure it out and base everything off budget. I'd rather base it off of benefits and try to work within their budget. And I'll tell you, budget, it's like pulling teeth. So one thing I like to say is, what I'm going to ask you now is not how much you think insurance costs, but what I'm going to ask is what is an affordable monthly budget range that I need to keep this within, so I can try to save as many pennies on the dollar as possible, okay? Again, one of the biggest things people will tell you is what they think insurance costs. They will lie to you on the budget. That's not what I want. I would like a realistic budget to work within. So really not as much of the, hey, I want to spend $700. Okay, I get it. You want, $700, but is that actually a realistic monthly budget so I'm not taking food off your table? I mean, insurance is expensive. People will know what their budget is more than likely before they call you. Honestly, they really will. This is something they've thought about. So if we can create a package for them within that budget, instead of trying to create a package and have to start taking things off, really important. From there, start date, usually not such a big deal to get from people. They know when they want their insurance to start. And so after I get all this information, one thing I'll tell you I like to do is really sum everything up before I even start to pull up a plan. So kind of, okay, Jane, so you told me that you were calling me today because, your father passed away of cancer and, not having insurance is something that scares you. And you told me that you are looking for a plan that's going to help you go to the doctor and protect you from those huge what ifs. You want to keep this under $400 and you want it to start on the 1st. Is that the type of plan we're looking for today? I will not move on until they agree to all those things: the usage, the budget, and the start date. Those are my big 3. I'm not going to present a plan to somebody unless I know exactly what they're going to use it for. It makes your life easier when presenting it. So you'd be surprised how many people would be like, oh, sure, whatever, and just move on. No, stop. Make the client agree on the benefits, the date, and the budget. Those are huge. Really, you should spend a lot of time on the why, spend as much time on the usage as you need, and really dig into, the budget. I mean, if they're going to give you a fake number, there is no way you can close them. Maybe they'll say yes, maybe they'll write the plan, but guess what? They're going to call and cancel that so dang quick. So make sure you get a good usage, budget, start date, and a very solid why. To jump into the presentation, I know we're running a little short on time, so it's something that if we can go back and talk about later. So the presentation, the big thing is that you need to relate it back to your fact finding. The biggest thing is you need to make it make sense for the client. When you are painting the picture, talking about the deductible, bring up something they mentioned in fact finding. If somebody they know has been sick, you can use that as an example. People don't want to hear about just raw numbers. They will listen to you when you make it relate to them. Paint a very, very clear picture. I know the people who go through and lecture for presentations, really low turnaround rate. They can't really close. So paint a picture. I like to make sure that I have at least 2 examples from their life that I can do when I'm presenting my product. Not gonna lie to you, at least 2 examples. So if I know that they go to the doctor, I can explain how those would work. And then I always paint a clear picture when it comes to the deductible, because people will want to know about the raw numbers. They will want to understand it. But unless you make it make sense to them, they're not going to remember. The nice thing too is those 2 things you paint that clear picture about, that's what they'll walk away with. Guaranteed, that's the 2 things they're going to go to either their husband or their wife and say, hey, guess what, honey? This is how the plan works. Another thing too is you want them to get to say yes through the whole presentation. So can you see the benefits of this? Yes. Can you see how this is going to work for you? Yes. The more yeses you get throughout the presentation, the easier it will be at the close. You want them to say yes at the big ending. Well, start getting them to say yes now. Honestly, just work on those yeses. And another thing is keep it simple. Yes, we know this is insurance. Yes, you know so much about insurance that you could just spew all of your knowledge onto them so quick. No, we call it KISS. Keep it simple. Just keep it simple to them. Paint the picture down. Keep in mind, these people don't work in insurance all day long. They're not going to know. Some of them don't even know what the word deductible means. So really, just keep it simple. And then the close. If you do a really good job in fact finding, if you tie everything back to your presentation, you should have a fairly easy close rate. When you're going to ask for the sale, it shouldn't be too big. The thing that salespeople like about the close is this is when they feel they get to pick up that big mallet and just beat the client over the head. No, that is ineffective. If you do a good job on the front end, you're going to make the close easier for your client. We're going to talk about closing techniques in a few weeks here, so I don't want to dive too much into it, but the thing to expect on the close here is that there is only 2 answers that you should be able to get realistically. A yes or a no. The old Zig Ziglar, I can take a yes as graciously as I can take a no, but I cannot take a maybe. So you want to get a yes or no. If you do not get a yes or no on the close, you need a clear direction. What that means is a date and time that you will call the client back. So you either get a yes, this plan is absolutely great, you listened to me, everything is good, let's go ahead and write it. Or no, if you get a no, we can definitely make changes and go back to create a plan that works. You should already know what their honest budget is and usage, and so we should be able to go back and make those changes. But if you don't get those two, an exact date and time. You want your client to commit to the exact date and time that you will be able to call them back. That way they're expecting your call and it's not coming out of anywhere. So keep that in mind. Oh, yep, we're running a little short here, so I'll just keep going. So if there's any questions on anything today, and a few of those things we are going to come back to and dig a little more in depth, I just wanted to give you a big overview on what my concept of that full sales process is. This is a sales process that is used in basically every organization if you strip everything down. Any questions or questions for next Motivational Monday, if there are things that you'd like more tips on, please contact training@ahcpsales.com. That does go directly to me. And here we're going to kind of end with an Edwin Moses quote. So Edwin Moses is actually an Olympic gold medalist in 1976 and 1984, and he set the world record for the 400-meter hurdle 4 times. So he's a pretty impressive guy. One thing he says is, I always had to keep improving my skills in order to remain competitive and keep winning. I think that's important. A lot of us have been in sales for a very long time, and we know what we're doing. Obviously, we've made the sales, but we have to be able to constantly improve. That's why I think it's important for us to take a look at the 4 steps, kind of strip everything down, start from the basics a little bit. And honestly, if you took one thing away from those 4 steps, just one thing, this was a great use of your time. This was absolutely great use of your time. So keep in mind, we're going to have to constantly keep improving. This market is changing. It's one thing that we're going to try to do together. I'll let you know what I find out as we go. But you know what, everybody, I really want to thank you for dialing in today. Really make some great sales, create those insurance packages, and do not ever hesitate to reach out to me with questions at the email at the bottom. I had a lot of great conversations with agents who emailed me last week, so please keep reaching out. I am a resource here for you. And everybody, have a great Monday.